Good morning. There, you can be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, go ahead and call your witness, and then I'll give a brief explanation.
Thank you, Your Honor. The state of Ohio calls Dr. Larry Swanner.
Okay. Dr. Swanner is by Zoom, as you can see. He also has a personal ailment, I think involving his back. So we may go an hour, and then he may need to take a break. So we'll be taking a lot, like sessions like that today. Okay? You're not giving any inference one way or the other about it. Doctor, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Okay, for the record, I need you to raise your lower. I need you to state your name and then spell it for my court reporter.
My name is Larry, L-A-R-R-Y, Swanner, S-W-A-N-N-E-R.
Mr. Zion.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Swanner.
Good morning.
I'd like to start your testimony today with you explaining to the jury a little bit about your background and then go into what you did at Mount Carmel during the years you were employed there. So let's begin with where did you go to college and what did you study in college?
I went to undergraduate college in 1974, graduating in 1979 from the St. Louis College of Pharmacy with a Bachelor's of Science degree in pharmacy.
What, if anything, did you do with that Bachelor of Pharmacy degree in pharmacy?
I worked for 1 year as a pharmacist after graduating and then used the degree, hopefully very effectively, in my study of medicine.
Sorry.
Okay, you bled out on us. Repeat your answer, please.
I worked for 1 year as a pharmacist after graduating from pharmacy school, and then used the degree as a background and an aid in medical school.
What kind of pharmacy did you practice? Were you in a hospital or were you retail?
That's both. I worked in a rural setting for a gentleman that owned several local pharmacies and also contracted with a local hospital to supply pharmacy services. So I worked full-time, but I worked in all of these environments basically on other people's day off. So I worked both in the retail stores and I spent time working in the hospital pharmacy, furnishing pharmacy supplies and pharmacy care in that hospital.
And that would have been in the late 70s and early 80s for 1 year you did that?
Yes, that would have been 1979 to 1980.
And then you said you used that background as a basis or as a foundation to go to medical school?
That's correct.
Where did you go to medical school?
I attended Southern Illinois University School of Medicine beginning in 1980, and I graduated in 1983 with my doctorate of medicine degree.
Did you have any area of specialty or board certification?
After graduating from medical school, I attended a family practice residency in Davenport, Iowa that was affiliated with the University of Iowa, and completed that residency in 1986, and shortly thereafter became board certified in family medicine.
What did you do thereafter?
Initially, I worked in a small family practice group in Illinois for approximately 2 years. At that point, I was recruited to Columbus, Ohio by Mount Carmel and moved here to work as an independent contractor initially for Mount Carmel in a family practice that they owned. Over the course of time, the arrangements changed, but I worked in that medical practice until the late around 2010, 2011, at which point I changed practice sites, though I was still working for Mount Carmel. In 2004, I was elected as medical staff president by the medical staff at Mount Carmel and served that term until 2006 when it expired. And at that point was hired by Mount Carmel as a vice president of medical affairs at Mount Carmel West Hospital. I worked both seeing patients and in the administrative role for several years. And in 2014, I became a full-time vice president of medical affairs for Mount Carmel West.
All right. So to summarize, you have some experience as a pharmacist, but the bulk of your career is in clinical practice is in family medicine.
That's correct.
And that would involve what people would commonly known as I have to go to a doctor for a checkup or I have an ailment. I would make an appointment with your office if you were my doctor and you would see me in your office.
Yes, I had an office-based practice to see patients for all the reasons that a family physician sees patients. I also saw my own patients in the hospital for quite some time and managed the care in the hospital probably until 2006.
Okay.
Can't remember the date exactly, but for that period of time.
So if one of your patients that you saw in the office on a regular basis ended up in the hospital for something, you would go and see them and check in on them?
Yes, I would see them, manage their care, round on them every day.
Is that still a common practice to your knowledge of family doctors?
No, it's quite rare now. Most primary care physicians keep themselves in the office, and when they have their patients in the hospital, they defer to a hospitalist to manage and coordinate the care in the hospital, and then see them after they're discharged back in the office again.
All right. And what year was it that you began transitioning from your family practice to being an administrator at Mount Carmel?
2006.
Okay. And what happened late? What was the position you eventually ended up in, and what year was that?
I was hired as a vice president of medical affairs in 2006, and that's the position I held until I left.
Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what a vice president of medical affairs does on a day-to-day basis? What were your responsibilities? What was your typical day like?
There really was no such thing as a typical day. My job entailed many aspects of hospital administration and physician work. I was a liaison to the medical staff, and by that I mean I would explain to administration around policies, around regulations, around programming, how that would impact the medical staff. And I would also meet with medical staff members to try and explain that, so I would coordinate new policies, new regulations, new areas of care that the hospital might be implementing with the medical staff so they would understand there would be a seamless transition and they could provide the care that was necessary for those. I also was responsible for contracting physicians. I was responsible for making sure that there was call coverage through the emergency room of all the specialties who we provided care for at Mount Carmel, make sure there was 24/7 coverage for that, so call schedules. I was responsible for overseeing some of the quality and patient safety initiatives, and then other duties assigned, and there were lots of those.
You mentioned one of your responsibilities was to implement new policies and make sure those specialties were covered. In the year 2013, was there a trend in ICU care regarding having doctors there 24 hours?
Yes, there was.
Can you explain that trend to the folks here and explain what, if anything, you and your organization and you and Mount Carmel did?
Sure. Up until that time, it was accepted practice and the standard of care in many hospitals, I would say most hospitals, to have the ICU run like almost any other unit in the hospital. Patients were seen by their physician, but there wasn't necessarily a physician present in the ICU all the time. At Mount Carmel West, because we had a graduate medical program, we had internal medicine residents present even at nighttime, but we didn't necessarily have an attending physician on site. That began in the early 2010s to change, so the standard of care became to have a physician in attendance on site, or either on site or monitoring a computer that monitored these patients 24/7. We recognized that we needed to improve our coverage and stay current with the standards of care, so we entered into a program, or entered into an effort to devise a program where we could have ICU physician coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The way we ended up implementing that program was to have our regular physicians that were critical care physicians already seeing the patients during the day to commit to being on site for 12 hours a day. And then we employed and hired critical care physicians to see patients at the nighttime, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or thereabouts. So they would be on site, although patients were not necessarily admitted to their service. They were responsible for being there and taking care of the patients, admitting new patients, addressing situations that would arise during those off hours, whether that be developing instabilities or new problems or other problems that might need to be addressed. They were there to do that, and we implemented that program in 2013.
How many doctors did you hire in 2013 to cover the nighttime ICU in accordance with this emerging standard of care?
2 physicians.
What was the name of the first doctor you hired in 2013?
I don't remember the order of hire for the physicians, but we hired Dr. Hagris and Dr. Husel.
Do you recall if Dr. Hagris had any prior experience as a physician in a hospital when you hired him?
I believe he did, but I'm not sure what that experience was.
Do you recall if Dr. Husel had any prior experience working as a doctor in a hospital prior to you hiring him in 2013?
As I recall, his experience had been in association with his training, and this was his first job after training, was what we hired him for.
And do you recall where he received his training at as part of your hiring process?
The Cleveland Clinic.
And Doctor, you've been in this field for your career. Can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether or not the Cleveland Clinic is an accredited, well-known, and or respected organization or a training facility?
Cleveland Clinic is highly respected, has a great reputation for the care that they deliver, and our training programs are likewise held in high esteem.
And were these positions specifically for the night shift?
Yes.
Talking specifically about hiring Dr. Husel, does your hospital require board certification before hiring a physician for a particular area?
It requires that physicians either be board certified or on the track to get board certified.
Can you explain to the folks what that means? What does board certified mean?
There are boards of all the different specialties, whether it be internal medicine, emergency medicine, family medicine, critical care, pulmonology, cardiology. All the specialties have their own boards, which is an organization comprised of those specialists that determine what the minimum standards should be in terms of training and qualifications for a physician to be certified as acceptable and able to practice medicine in that field.
And do you recall what was Dr. Husel's field of specialty?
Dr. Husel was initially trained as an anesthesiologist and then did a fellowship, I believe, in critical care medicine.
And critical care medicine is what they do in the ICU, right?
That's correct.
And doctors that are critical care specialists also have these separate certifications, like you said, internal medicine, in Dr. Husel's case, anesthesiology, etc.
That's correct.
And do you recall whether or not, when you hired Dr. Husel for his first job as a doctor in a hospital outside of training, whether or not he was in fact board certified in the area of anesthesiology?
I don't believe he was.
All right. And would this be normal for a brand new doctor not to be board certified at that point?
Depending upon the specialty, yes.
And do some specialties require experience working before you can even take that test to be board certified?
Yes, some specialties require private, not necessarily private, but independent practice after finishing training. And some also require there to be submission of patient charts for patients that you've seen after you've completed your training before you can qualify to take the examination to be board certified.
So is he hired under what's called a waiver exception to board certification?
Not initially. The requirements for the medical staff, the bylaws, require that a physician, as I said earlier, be board certified or on track and get board certified within 5 years after joining the medical staff.
And was Dr.
So
Husel...
there's no waiver required.
I'm sorry. What was the last part of your answer?
My court reporter asked what was the last part of your answer because two were talking at the same time.
Sure. There was no requirement for a waiver at that time because he still had a period of time after joining the medical staff to become board certified according to the bylaws and the rules and regulations. So it didn't require a waiver.
So he was one of those guys on track to get that. So he's okay.
That's correct.
As far as that requirement goes. All right. So did you meet personally with Dr. Husel during the hiring process in 2013?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury the meeting you would have, without saying what people said, but generally what type of information would have been relayed to Dr. Husel regarding hospital policies, protocols, etc.? What, in your mind's eye, look back and you're meeting with Dr. Husel, what are you telling him regarding expectations, etc.?
Let me ask a question to just clarify what you're wanting. I met with him before he was employed just as an introductory meeting, but then I also would meet with all physicians as they are joining the medical staff. So at the point that he was appointed to the medical staff, I would also meet with physicians as part of their onboarding and orientation process. Which one of those meetings are you referring to?
The onboarding and orientation process?
Okay. I would meet with, I don't remember the specific meeting with Dr. Husel, but I can tell you what my typical habits were regarding these physicians. I would meet with them, welcome them to the medical staff, explain to them that there are lots of policies, procedures, and regulations, along with medical staff bylaws and regulations as well. All of those are available online. We don't print huge binders and give to physicians. We make them available online. Recommend that all physicians become familiar with them, especially the ones that are appropriate to their particular field of practice. Other people would also be involved with the orientation, but I would want to make sure that physicians know who I am, where I am, and make myself available. If there are any problems, questions, or issues that come up, I'm always available. Please let me know how I can help. That would be the essence of the meeting.
And that would be in line with your role as a liaison between people like Dr. Husel and the hospital administration.
That's correct.
All right. Thereafter, would you ever have meetings with Dr. Husel or Dr. Hagris as part of your duties as the Vice President of Medical Affairs?
Yes, I would meet with those physicians 2 or 3 times a year usually. Those are meetings to primarily touch base, check in for both of us, make sure if there were any issues that we would all have an opportunity to express those and get them resolved and addressed in a proper fashion. I wanted to make sure that they were aware that I hadn't forgotten about them because they only worked nighttime. I very seldom would see them in the normal course of working, but I wanted to make sure they were still engaged with the hospital and the medical staff, and so I would ask to meet with them, as I said, a couple of times a year, to see how things were going, see if they had any questions or issues I could address.
All right. Looking back on the year 2014, were there any issues that either Dr. Husel or anybody brought to you regarding Dr. Husel?
No.
2015, any issues regarding Dr. Husel or that Dr. Husel brought to you, or issues that were brought to your attention regarding Dr. Husel?
No.
2016, same question.
No.
2017.
No.
2018. Were there any issues brought to your attention regarding Dr. Husel?
Not that I recall.
In October of 2018, did you have a conversation with Katie Barja?
Yes, I did, and I must correct my last statement. I got a little confused with years. In 2018, yes, I did hear of concerns.
Directing your attention to that concern, when is the first time, looking back in your mind's eye, you remember hearing anything about Dr. Husel regarding what we're here for today?
October 25th.
October 25th. Describe what you're doing. Describe the scene to the jury.
Well, there was a daily meeting of leaders in all the different areas at Mount Carmel West that occurred every morning, Monday through Friday at Mount Carmel West, and Katie Barja attended those meetings. After the meeting on October 25th, she approached me with a concern about Dr. Husel's practice.
All right. And for purposes of what you did next, what was that concern that Katie Barja approached you with?
There was a concern about the care of a patient the previous evening who was terminal and was being palliatively extubated, and high doses of a medication, higher doses than the pharmacy was used to seeing, were used on this patient, and they were concerned about that.
All right. I'm going to ask you some questions about your knowledge as a family physician and a family physician that followed his patients in the hospital. Were you familiar, based on your own experience, with what a palliative extubation was?
Yes.
All right. Did you ever yourself perform palliative extubations, the physical act of removing the endotracheal tube and turning off the ventilator?
Yes, I have, many years ago.
All right. So you're familiar when Katie Barja says a terminal patient and a palliative extubation. You know what she's talking about.
Yes.
All right. Did she describe to you the particulars of the dosing concern? The amount of the dose and the drugs involved?
Not that I recall.
Okay. What happened next in this conversation with Katie Barja?
We talked about referring this to peer review for review and investigation, and I agreed that that should occur, and she told me she had already referred that.
Okay. So is this an exchange of emails, text messages, a phone call, or are you face-to-face with Katie Barja at this point?
It's a face-to-face conversation.
All right. Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what peer review is, in general, how it works, when it meets, what's the purpose, etc.
Peer review is a quality, is an organization that is tasked with looking at the quality of care that's provided by a peer. So in this instance, this would be a group of physicians that are in same or similar specialties or have access to physicians that are in same or similar specialties that can look at the care of a physician, especially if there are questions raised about the care of a physician, to investigate whether it was appropriate, and if it was not appropriate, why that was, and how it should be remedied. It is a highly, what do I want to say, a confidential process. Its actions and results are not shared beyond the committee and those people who have access to confidential matters related to peer review.
All right. And when, if you know, does peer review, is it fair to call it a committee? Peer review committee? When does this peer review committee generally meet, and how often?
Usually meets monthly.
All right. And to your knowledge, in October of 2018, October 25th, when you said this conversation was taking place, to your knowledge, had peer review for the October month, had they met yet?
I believe they had.
All right. So if it's going to be peer reviewed, it's going to be in the November peer review?
I assumed that, yes.
All right. What's the next thing you remember regarding something about Dr. Husel? What's October 25th, you have this conversation. Do you follow up? Do you start calling people? Do you talk to Dr. Husel? Do you do any of that after that meeting with Katie Barja?
No, that was typically the responsibility of the peer review committee.
Okay. What's the next thing that happens?
The next thing that I recall occurred on November 20th.
All right. So now we're not quite a month, but almost a month later. Right?
Yes. Yes.
And between October 25th and November 20th of 2018, had you done any follow-up? Had you heard from peer review? Had this been brought up in any fashion to you until November 20th?
No, it had not.
All right. We've heard from several witnesses. This is around Thanksgiving of that year, the week of Thanksgiving?
That is correct. This was the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving.
What, if anything, did you hear next about Dr. Husel?
It was a similar situation after that same meeting. Katie Barja approached me again and told me there was another concern. It was a very similar situation of a terminal patient undergoing a palliative extubation, and pharmacy had again raised concerns about a high dose of medication that was given much higher than they were used to seeing at that time.
Was this a face-to-face conversation, or was this through an email?
This was face-to-face.
All right. I'm going to try to show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 20F. And it's okay to publish to share the screen. This is not it. This is the Zoom invite. This is not it. I need this one, November 19th. Okay, it should be right here, right? Nope, not there.
No, you need, did you get it? All right, so where is the document?
It should be on my desktop.
Where at?
It's still open in the...
She had them open for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so lower that one. All right, so let's do this.
Go back there.
Where's your...
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Let's see. Where's your... I need to enlarge this. Hang on.
Okay.
Show small. I don't know what you did, David.
I don't know what I did.
Okay.
I had share screen. I just picked the
if
wrong
you
one.
Go back up here and then stop share screen.
Stop share screen.
Now
Okay.
go to share screen again.
Share screen
And
is
then
right here.
find the option with the PDF up there.
Is that, but that's, I need 20
need 20
Fs.
Still,
Still
you can
part of
open
it?
it, but it'll be a different tab up at the top.
We're going to figure it out.
Is this one?
No, it's this one here.
What's this?
It's November 19th. That's the second one.
And I don't know if I got that one from you or if it didn't pull it up here.
Oh, that's why we can't do it.
Unless this is.
Try it.
This one? No.
Then I don't
No?
have that one.
You didn't get this one
I
on?
don't think I did.
Okay.
Do you know where it's at?
I'm going to just ask them. Okay. Let's go to stop share. Yep. If it wasn't scanned, it wasn't scanned. All right. So we're going to try this a different way, Dr. Swanner. My apologies. This is a new process for me. Did your attorney receive an email from Katie, a copy of an email from Katie Barja sent on Monday, November 19th to you? Sensitivity confidential. Do you have something like that in front of you or available to you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I don't have it in front of me yet. I think I do see something now.
All right. Is that dated?
But I have an email dated 11/19, but it is not to me. Oh, here we go. Oh, that's the 21st. Bear with me, we're searching for the document.
I can put it on the overhead and just cut him out, though. Isn't that what it does?
No, let's try it. Let's see. Take our chances.
Okay, I'm up.
Excuse me, can you describe the document more fully so we can look for it specifically?
Hold on for a second. Can you hit send off? He's in a conference in one of the other courtrooms right now. Okay, message him. David, the exhibit number you're working.
What's that?
What's the exhibit number you're working?
20F.
20F. Do you have a document that's labeled 20F there, doctor?
I don't think we do.
All right. We did not scan this one. My apologies.
Well, can we come back to this document?
We can come back to that. I think we can just, I think everyone agrees this is fair and accurate, and I can just talk about it. We can just get through it that way.
Any objection?
I agree that it's part of the rules of evidence as to the accuracy. I think that's what the trick is.
Okay.
I mean, otherwise, I mean, if you don't want me, I don't have to go through this process.
Okay, I'll give a brief explanation here. What we're talking about is a concept called foundation. Okay, there's certain questions that have to be asked. Okay, we're not judging the evidence itself. We're judging whether that's a reliable copy of a document. Okay, we're not invading your space. Okay, we're just going through the formality of formation.
Thank you.
Our foundation. Well, Paul, we couldn't get a document up. We're going to work with it right now.
All right. Well, can we just switch over here so the jury can see then State's Exhibit
Can you
20F?
get it to work there, Paul?
I think, no, I can't.
There we go. Doctor, can you see that? Can you hear me?
He can't hear, well, he can probably hear you, but you can't hear him at the moment.
All right. For the record, publishing what I've marked as State's Exhibit 20F, a document that starts with Katie Barja at the top, from Katie Barja, sent Monday, November 19th, 2018, to Larry Swanner.
Okay, hold on. Doctor, can you see the document? I know you can't hear me. Review the doc, I mean, we can't hear you. Review the document real quickly for us, and then we're going to take it off the screen and then talk to you. We'll give them enough time. I'm going to take a chance here. Okay,
all right.
Let's take it down. Were you able to see that document, Doctor?
I was, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. All right. That says Katie Barr just sent you an email on November 19th.
Yes, I saw it.
So you said the next thing you remember was November 20th? Could it have been November 19th that you were actually informed of the next incident?
Yes, it very well could have been. I apologize. I thought it was the 20th, but it obviously was the 19th.
All right. And once again, now, so this was not a face-to-face conversation, at least this document. Did you also have a face-to-face conversation with Ms. Barja on the 19th or the 20th regarding the second incident?
I was informed on the 19th face-to-face. I talked to her before I could see this email.
Okay. Is that email fair and accurate regarding what she told you about the concerns?
Yes.
All right. What, if anything, did you do then on the 19th after being told of the second incident regarding concerns of Dr. Husel in the ICU at night?
Objection. Leading.
Well, it's transitional. Let him have it. Do you understand the question, Doctor?
Yes and no. I need to clarify what.
Stop. Let's have him rephrase the question for you. Okay?
What, if anything, did you do next?
Well, as I learned, as the email showed, that the peer review committee did not meet to look at the first case, and that was one of my first questions, was what's the status of the first case, since we now had 2 of these in the course of less than a month. And I learned that the peer review committee canceled its meeting and wasn't scheduled to meet until December. At this point, I didn't want to wait until December because we had 2 of these cases. So I decided to undertake an investigation myself as best I could. So I looked at the voice reports that were available for these 2 cases, and also went into the patient medical record for both of these patients to see what was documented. I learned upon looking at those that we were looking at extraordinarily high doses of fentanyl and Versed that had been administered to these patients, which seemed to be much higher than I had seen before. So at that point, I tried to contact.
Hold on, Doc. We've got a sidebar on this one. Ladies and gentlemen, get to know each other some more. I haven't seen any loving going over there between you all. Come on.
Oh, you got it. Oh, yes, that's true. I have it actually YouTube and brought it up. And then it looks like stars. There's no way.
bring back up the question. Go ahead.
Well, my question is after this email, what, if anything, did you do next? And he was describing what he did next and why he did that.
Okay, indulge me a bit, Doc. Would you repeat your answer, please?
Sure. I decided to start an investigation myself into these cases. I looked at the voice complaints regarding them. I also looked into the patient records and discovered high dose of fentanyl and Versed, much higher than I had personally seen used previously. That was
overruled.
Keep going.
That was quite alarming. I'm sorry?
Keep going.
Okay.
Did you finish your answer?
That was
Responsive, Judge.
I have not. I am continuing to
Finish
answer.
your answer.
I was quite alarmed by that, so I tried to contact.
Overruled.
I'm objecting to the narrative.
I understand what you're objecting to, okay? Overruled. I'll let the man finish his answer. Doc, you were talking about certain things, and then what did you do next?
I tried to contact Dr. David Ralston, who is the medical director of the intensive care unit at Mount Carmel West. I tried calling him several times. I texted him several times, but I couldn't get him on the phone. And so by this time, it was the end of the day, and I decided to continue my investigation around this the next day.
What happened next?
Well, I still couldn't get in touch with Dr. Ralston. He still didn't return my calls and texts. So I decided to contact Dr. Gina Moody. Dr. Moody.
I'm going to stop you there. Why are you trying to get a hold of Dr. Ralston? You described his title. Why was that important to you to get a hold of Dr. Ralston? What is his role at Mount Carmel at this time?
Dr. Ralston was the medical director of the intensive care unit. So he had some oversight responsibilities regarding the care that physicians provide there. I wanted to contact him to ask him if he was aware of these cases in specific, but in general, if he was aware of the utilization of fentanyl and Versed in patients in these situations at these doses. Perhaps there was a new protocol that I was not aware of, or perhaps there was some extenuating circumstances that wasn't evident in the medical record that I could find, and I thought he might have additional knowledge that would help me in my investigation of what was going on with these drugs and these patients.
But you weren't able to get a hold of him, is that right?
That is correct.
So what did you do next?
I contacted Dr. Gina Moody. Dr. Moody is also a critical care physician. At the time, she was the chairman of the Department of Internal Medicine, so she had medical staff leadership responsibilities. But actually, more importantly than that, she was a critical care physician who had seen patients like this, had treated patients like this, and I could ask her similar questions regarding the standard of care from her perspective.
What did you do next?
After talking to Dr. Moody, I tried to do some research online just regarding the dose of fentanyl in these situations to see what I could discover.
What did you do next?
Go
ahead.
By this time it was the 21st of November, and I was contacted about a third patient at that time.
November 23rd. Okay. I'm going to try this again because I do believe I have this one up. I'm going to show you what I've marked for identification purposes. It's this email. By agreement of the parties, we're going to publish 20E. Share screen. Share screen. It should be right there. Boom. Share. Can you see that, Doctor?
Yes, I can.
All right. And for the record, this is 20. God bless America. Yeah, 20E. All right. And it is, for the record, an email from Katie Barja. What's the date on that, please?
November 21st, 2018.
And that is to you and who else?
Sean McKibben, who is the president of Mount Carmel West Hospital, and Dina Bush, who was the chief nursing officer. with a copy to Randy Miles, who was one of the directors in pharmacy.
All right, and the subject line?
Well, it happened again.
All right. And is this a fair and accurate copy of the email from Katie Barger that you received on Wednesday, November 21st?
Yes, it is.
So are we now on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving of 2018?
That is correct.
Okay. Stop sharing. What did you do next?
Well, I looked at this patient's chart also. I also contacted Dr. Dominic, who is the chairman of the Department of Anesthesiology, to get his input into the utilization of these drugs at these doses.
What happened next?
I had previously let Sean McKibben know that I was investigating 2 cases at that point. So I followed up with him to let him know there was a 3rd case that was very similar, and he asked that, he convened a meeting of Mount Carmel West leaders who had input into these areas of care in these situations that same day.
I'm going to stop you there. Do you recall what date this meeting occurred on?
November 21st.
That same day?
Yes.
And Sean McKibben, what's his role in the hospital?
He's the president of the hospital.
And who, if you recall, was convened to be at this meeting?
I was there. Dina Bush, the chief nursing officer, was there. Katie Barger was there. I believe there was a representative from pharmacy, though I can't remember exactly who that was. There was also one of the nurse managers who works in the ICU.
What happened next?
I believe there was a discussion at that meeting, and a decision was made and agreed upon that for the time being until this could be more further investigated and resolved, that Dr. Husel should not be seeing patients anymore, and there was a discussion about how to accomplish that. I made the recommendation at that meeting, and it was agreed upon to take him off of the ICU schedule.
How would this prevent Dr. Husel from seeing patients?
I was aware that Dr. Husel was contracted by a subsidiary of Mount Carmel that employs physicians, the Mount Carmel Medical Group, and his sole contracted work was working in the ICU. So if he was taken off of the schedule, he wouldn't be working seeing patients in the ICU, and that was the only place that he worked within the hospital. So this should adequately prevent him from seeing patients for the time being.
Was your investigation complete, or had definitive conclusions been made at this point?
No. We were still investigating. There were obviously concerns, but no definitive solution, no definitive answer had been determined.
If your investigation had revealed, hypothetically, that what Dr. Husel was doing was appropriate, would having him temporarily removed from his work schedule harm him reputation or career-wise in any way?
Sustained.
No.
No.
I apologize.
Answer.
May I ask the basis?
We had an objection.
Yeah. May I ask the basis?
Our previous discussion. You're soliciting an opinion.
Oh, okay. I'll move on.
Move to strike it.
I already struck it.
I apologize.
What happened next?
I tried to get in touch with Dr. Husel to inform him of this decision and had some difficulty doing so. It took some time to get in touch with him, but eventually I did get in touch with him that same day and informed him that concerns had been raised around the care of 3 of his patients, and this needed to be investigated. So for the time being, he would be taken off of the ICU schedule, and he did not have to report to work. We would let him know as things progressed what the next steps might be.
just for full explanation, what difficulty or why did you have difficulty getting hold of Dr. Husel on this is all on the same date, the 21st?
Objection.
Okay,
Yes.
sustained to the format of the question. You're asking him to speculate.
I'm asking why he had difficulty.
Okay, that wasn't what your question was, but
Okay, I'll rephrase then.
rephrase.
Why did you have difficulty getting a hold of Dr. Husel?
Judge, objection.
Well, I'll let him answer that one.
I could not find a contact phone number for him. I asked the ICU if they had any information about that. I looked into his file,
Okay,
and
you've gone a little bit far. Let's next question.
All right. You were eventually able to get a hold of him and inform him that he's off the schedule, just for transition.
Yes.
that is correct.
What happened next?
I contacted Dr. Richard Streck. He was the Chief Clinical Operations Officer for the health system. So I informed him of the situation that we had, what we had found so far, and what actions we had taken.
Okay, so you said, is that a Dr. Streck or who's he?
Yes, he is Dr. Streck, Dr. Richard Streck. He was essentially the Chief Medical Officer for the health system, but his title was Chief Clinical Officer.
What does a chief medical officer do? Can you explain that to the folks?
On a system level, he did much of the things that I did on a hospital level. He oversaw the care. He had a lot of different departments reporting to him. He was involved with strategic development from a physician's aspect, from a clinical aspect. As I said, many clinical operations reported to him, including quality and safety. I believe pharmacy may have reported to him at one point. So he oversaw the clinical operations in the entire health system.
And describe this entire health system. When you're saying the entire health system, you're at Mount Carmel West, a particular hospital, you said.
Right.
What's the
Mount Carmel Health System? That's Mount Carmel Health System entails, at that time, 4 different hospitals: Mount Carmel West, Mount Carmel East, Mount Carmel St. Anne's, and Mount Carmel New Albany Surgical Hospital. It also had its own employment arm that employed physicians. The Mount Carmel Medical Group had its own Medicare Advantage insurance plan, Medical. Also owned and operated several outpatient practices from primary care to specialty.
Stop.
Yes.
Madam Court Reporter, what did you need?
What was the name of the Medicare plan?
Did you hear
Medicare Advantage. Yes, I did. Medicare Advantage plan called Medigold, Medigold.
Okay, does that work for you, Madam Court Reporter?
Also, can you spell Dr. Streck's last name?
Streck.
Okay, Mr. Stein, why don't you jump in and get us back to where we need to be?
All right, so now you're informing the organization's level of management, right? That's when Dr. Streck's brought in?
That's correct.
What happens next?
I think next is when I spoke to Dr. Husel, I asked him to meet with me personally on Monday, November 26th. And I was going to try and get Dr. Ralston to attend that meeting as well. He agreed to do so. On Sunday, that would be the 25th of November, I believe, Dr. Ralston did return my messages, and I explained to him what was going on, what we had discovered, what we found. Asked him if he could join the meeting with Dr. Husel on Monday in my office, and he agreed to do so. So on Monday, Dr. Husel, Dr. Ralston, and I met. I'm sorry?
You both were talking at the same time. Hold on, relax for a second, Doc. You both were talking at the same time. Ask him a new question.
Did this meeting occur on Monday, November 26th?
Yes, it did.
And looking back in your mind's eye, where did this physically take place? What time of day it was? Who was present?
It took place around noon in my office at Mount Carmel West. Dr. Husel, Dr. Ralston, and I were in attendance.
Okay. What, if anything, did you say to Dr. Husel at this meeting?
I explained to him what the concerns were regarding the doses of these medications. I believe I gave him the voice reports so he could see them. I explained to him what the concerns were and asked him about those dosages and what his intent was, why he was using dosages this high.
All right.
I also asked
Go ahead.
I also asked Dr. Ralston to explain what his usual way of caring for these patients and performing this procedure was on patients like this.
All right, very good. And I don't want, because of hearsay issues, not what Dr. Husel said, but can you describe to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury Dr. Husel's demeanor during this meeting?
He was fairly passive. He did not seem to be upset. He was collegial. He was cooperative at that time, but and answered my questions.
All right, and we're not getting into what he said. All right, so how do you recall this meeting ending? Regarding any conclusions, were there any conclusions? Was there any resolution at the conclusion of this November 26th meeting?
I informed Dr. Husel that we were going to continue leaving him off the schedule for the time being. I thanked him for coming into the meeting. I think I said that I hope this could be resolved quickly, but we would be in touch after we had more information to share with them.
All right. Was Dr. Husel fired at this point?
No.
All right. What's the next thing you recall happening in this instance after the meeting? What happened next chronologically?
Later that same day, I had follow-up with Dr. Streck, and he indicated that he had asked the quality department to do some investigating into potential other cases and to run some reports to investigate further. And they did have a report back in response to his request. At some point that week, I was shown that report.
All right.
I don't know if I can speak to what the report showed, but...
Well, not yet. Let's talk about what this report, how is that being done? And let me be more specific, directing your attention to, gosh, I don't even know what do you know who Leslie Bowman is?
Yes, I do.
Who's Leslie Bowman and what does she do for the hospital?
She works in the quality and safety department. Can't tell her specific job responsibilities, but I know she did a lot of work with researching data and statistics, and that was done via a computer.
All right. So part of her jobs is to research data using a computer. Is that fair?
That is correct, yes.
Is she the person that is researching data using a computer regarding Dr. Husel?
Yes.
All right.
Hold on, Mr. Zion. Doctor, you've got this glare on your face from the sun coming in. Okay?
Okay.
I was just letting you know if someone could fix that. How are you holding up right now? Are you feeling okay?
Doing okay. I could... What time would your normal break occur, Your Honor?
About 15 minutes from now.
Let's shoot for that.
Okay.
All right.
Excuse me, does it help if I sit back and pull the computer this way? Does that help the glare?
Okay, when you move forward is when the reflection comes off your face. like
when I
you
move
bend
forward.
into the computer, like there, it's not bad there.
Yes.
But I think they fixed it, so
Okay.
it was just annoying me. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, continue on.
Were the results of this report shared with you?
Well, first of all, may I indicate what the parameters of the report were?
Please.
So the request and the report looked at the previous 2 years and any patients not in an operating room who were on a ventilator receiving over 500 micrograms of fentanyl during their hospital stay while they were, I believe, while they were in the ICU. The report indicated there were several of these patients, more than the 3 that I had been investigating. All of those patients had those high doses of fentanyl ordered by Dr. Husel throughout the Mount Carmel Health System.
Was one of the parameters of this report specific to Dr. Husel?
No, it looked at all patients, regardless of physician.
How many other physicians? And you said this was the whole hospital system?
Objection, Judge.
Okay, let's rephrase the question.
Was this report run for the whole hospital system?
Yes, it was.
So those 4 hospitals you described?
That is correct.
Outside of the OR, in the ICU, how many doctors in the whole hospital system were ordering 500 micrograms or above of fentanyl?
Objection.
Just one.
Objection.
Stop. I'll permit the question. Go ahead and give the answer.
Judge, he's tested.
Just one.
Okay, let's go sidebar. If we take a break real quick, give my jury 15 minutes. Will that work for you, Doc?
Yes, it will. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, remember the admonition. We're back in 15 minutes, and then we'll deal with this over here. Have a great break.